What's up YouTube, this is Yami here, and in this video I will be talking about my experience with Dragon Balls in terms of how I watched it while growing up. Alright, let's jump right into it. Originally, when I was just a wee little Yami, I didn't really have much access to any Dragon Ball media. I believe the only thing I had at the time was one of the old Dragon Ball movies. I think it was called Dragon Ball Z BoJack Come Down. And after watching it, I'm not gonna lie, my 6-year-old mind was completely blown, because up until that point I had watched shows like Clifford the Big Red Dog, Caillou, and a show called Cyber Chase, which many people probably don't know about, and I would advise against watching it. Shit was cursed. Don't even remember what the fuck it was about. Anyways, so seeing a movie like this was exhilarating. Like, something about watching two animated characters fight tooth and nail just had me on the edge of my seat, bro. Shit was like crack. On top of that, I'm sure that any kid my age was fascinated by the idea of transformations. I know they're kind of the norm to see in Dragon Ball now, but watching Gohan and the others transform for the first time shattered my reality on what was possible for like media or like TV up until that point. Like, how the hell do you go from black hair to yellow? The idea never even crossed my mind, and another thing that never crossed my mind was the idea of ki attacks. My god, bro. Like, up until that point, I grasped the concept of weapons and, like, you know, how they inflict bodily harm. But the idea of having your fists as weapons, and not in the way of like I'll beat your ass type of weapons, but like I'll literally throw a nuke at you type of weapons. With all that being said, like, that was just a sensory overload for me. And after that movie, I can guarantee you that from that point on, I was hooked. But the only problem was I didn't have any other way to get any more of it. So up until that point, there was nothing else. So for all I knew, this was it. Peak fiction. And I experienced it at such a young age. It was all downhill from here. There was no way I was going back to Caillou after this. Luckily, there was more, obviously. But when I finally got cable a couple years later, I stumbled across Dragon Ball Z Kai on Nicktoons, and it was like meeting an old friend that you haven't seen in a while. It might be a little weird, you know, at first when you talk to them, but eventually you kind of picked up where you left off, and things just feel right. Now, like I said earlier, I watched the Kai dub. And up until that point, I believe there was only the Saiyan Saga to the Cell Saga, which, to be honest, was good enough for me, because I loved it, and like, I loved every part of it. And a feeling I will never forget, like how sad it made me, was at the end of the Cell Saga when Gohan looked up at the sky and there was like an image of Goku fading away. And this kind of hit me because it really, up until that point, it signified that the show was ending, and for all I knew at that point, it was ending, because there was no new episodes after this. I believe there wasn't even they didn't even show the episode with Trunks going back to the future. So yeah, I genuinely thought the show was over. Honestly, it could have ended right there and it would have been great. Up until that point, I didn't have many thoughts on the show and what it meant to me, because obviously I was a kid at the time, and the only things I was focused on were other people beating each other up and transformations. It was kind of that way for a long time, until I got older and learned to appreciate it in different ways, obviously. But after that, I kind of took a break from watching DBZ. And I believe it wasn't until I think it was my freshman year in high school when my mom got Netflix for the family. This is where I watched Dragon Ball GT, and I watched it without knowing about the Buu saga and the original saga. So while watching it, I was happy to see like a lot of old faces It made me happy to see like Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo. Gohan was a surprise, but like just all the old characters, right? But I was very confused by the other characters, like from the Buu saga, right? Like Videl, Oob, and then some from the original saga, like Bulla, or not Bulla, the Pilaf gang and stuff like that, right? And the surprise that came with Gohan is obviously he grew up and he had a wife and kids, right? So there was a whole bunch of confusion there. And speaking about confusion, what made things even worse in terms of, like, I think this is where it finally clicked that I missed the whole saga. Outside of them talking about, it. The Super Saiyan 3 transformation was very jarring to me, because I know Dragon Ball Z is a show that focuses on transformations, right? So whenever a new transformation pops up, they make a big deal out of it. So when Goku legitimately turned into a caveman, and he didn't have any reaction to it, and later on when he turned into a caveman again, and nobody had a reaction to it, they're just like, oh yeah, he's in, Super Saiyan 3. Like, nobody's questioning, he just lost his eyebrows, he just grew a wig, and it's just, that's when I really put together, okay, like, I definitely missed something, right? But even with all this confusion, I still managed to watch it to the end strictly because of my love for the DBZ, or just for DBZ up until that point. So when Dragon Ball GT ended, I really didn't think much of it. I mean, there were great moments in GT, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people can agree that compared to Z, it didn't feel the same. It didn't give the same vibe. And I know it's not supposed to, but there was something from Z that made Z special that GT just didn't have. It's not like I disliked it. It was more of a, it was alright. Right. So moving along, about a month later, I decided to watch the original Dragon Ball series, and man, oh man, what I would give to rewatch that series as if it was my first time watching it. Every character was brimming with personality, and there was never a dull moment because of it. That plus the zany world created by Akira Toriyama made the series even more interesting. Then there was the whole tournament thing, which was another aspect that added even more to the series in terms of martial arts. I love the martial arts in the original series, but I will say I genuinely enjoyed the comedy and adventure portions of it much more because it was different. Even though some of the jokes are a little corny, they are still hilarious. I can still go back and watch clips from the original series and they'll still get a chuckle out of me. That's how good it was. If you haven't watched it, I advise that you do. There's some really good stuff in there. From that point on, I actually sat down and rewatched the entire series from a site called Kiss Anime. And when I finally got to the Buu saga, I remember that I couldn't find the rest of the Kai dub. So I had to watch the original DBZ dub. Now, I don't know if it's just me already getting accustomed to the Kai dub or what, but I really don't see how anyone thinks that this dub holds a candle to the Kai dub. It's probably nostalgia for me or for others, who knows, but that's just my opinion. I think the Kai dub is superior versus the original dub. Anyways, moving along. Buu saga overall for me, man, was kind of a clusterfuck. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty nicely. Yeah, it was just a clusterfuck. But in all seriousness, there were a lot of things in Dragon Ball that didn't make sense sometimes, and there were some things that were just outright stupid. But my god, man, the Buu saga took that shit and cranked it up to 11. There were many moments in this saga that had me scratching my head. Like, why did Goku think it was smart to leave the fate of the world to a 7 and 8 year old? why did Vegeta have to be so damn stupid and get a forehead tattoo, then proceed to go through a midlife crisis? Whose idea was it for a talking piece of bubblegum to give everybody their hands? And how the fuck does Gohan, a superpowered individual, catch a baseball and some bullets, but not catch a goddamn air? Like, doesn't make any sense. All jokes aside though, I know that some of these things were explained, but still the Buu saga for me was just a weird part of Dragon Ball. Not a bad saga. It had amazing moments like Vegeta's atonement, Goku Super Saiyan 3, Majin Vegeta versus Goku, Ultimate Gohan, Gotenks, Vegito, etc. Right? It was just a weird saga. Not one of my favorites, but I can understand why people like it. And I think by the time I finished it all, I was just hitting the summer of my freshman year, and probably not even a month later, Dragon Ball Super dropped. I'm not going to get into that at the moment, maybe in another video if I feel like it. With that being said, Dragon Ball has and always will be dear to me. It played a big role in my life growing up, taught me life lessons that I still keep to this day. Two of those being, no matter what challenges you face in life, be it big or small, there's always a way to overcome them. And the other one being to always seek self-improvement in whatever you are passionate about. And I know you can learn these from like other aspects in life. I'm just trying to say that I learned this from Dragon Ball, and I will always be thankful that it provided that to me. Anyways, thank you for any and everyone who watched this video. Hopefully you have a good day. Peace, peace. Deuce, deuce.